Life is all about relationships. Lovers, family, body, or money. How satisfied you are can be completely explained by how you relate to things around you. This is Sophie Jaffe, and together with my husband, Dr. Adi Jaffe, we are here to explore and teach you how to maximize your relationships and achieve a happier life. Let's get ignited. This episode of Ignited is brought to you by Four Sigmatic.
These guys make some of the coolest mushroom-based powders on earth. No, not those mushrooms. These are those medicinal and holistic wellness powders.
They make a few different ones, and I've loved using them for a few years now.
Yeah, you've been using them for longer than I have.
Absolutely. I first found out about Four Sigmatic years ago. They work in such beautiful synergy with my philosophy products.
Yeah, they're really great. They have packets of just single mushrooms like lion's mane mushroom.
I love lion's mane. I use it every single day.
But did you know that Buddhist monks use it to help during meditation?
I mean, it makes sense. No wonder I'm attracted to it.
There you go. They also have ones with coffee in them, and they use pure Arabica beans, so that's the good stuff. And they even have packets with cacao, and you know that because I love making the super powdered hot chocolate.
Yeah, I love bringing these in travel. They make life so much easier. When we were in Israel, I use them every single day because they're so easy to use. We use them all together. Again, I use them in travel, and also in the mornings, I like to mix a really yummy, supercharged coffee with Four Sigmatic and philosophy. We make it almost every single morning, and if you want to grab that recipe, you can check it out in the link in our show notes.
Seriously, if you want to superpower your life with these magic mushrooms from our friends at Four Sigmatic, just head over to foursigmatic.com/ignited, that's IGNTD, and use the code IGNITED at checkout, and you'll receive 15% off of your entire purchase.
Such a good discount.
Yeah, and the offer is awesome, the product is awesome, and you should head over there right now.
Thanks, guys.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Ignited podcast. I'm Adi Jaffe.
And I'm Sophie Jaffe.
And we're bringing you a topic we've wanted to talk about for a long time. We've mentioned it here and there, I feel like, in the interview portions.
Yeah,
in the pre-interview portion.
Pre-interview. You've gotten some tidbits about this topic. It's something that is near and dear to my heart, both of our hearts. We've gone through some really rough patches and some friendships. Some of those friendships have returned. In different stages, and some of them have not. And I think it's something that isn't talked about a lot, this kind of energetic breakup.
Yeah. You talked about it when we had the making friends in adulthood episode. So we talked a little bit about that idea, but then what you're telling me is people asked for more, and maybe even more specifically, not making friends in adulthood, but almost like friend breakups in adulthood. What does that look like?
Yeah, exactly. I posted something 4 or 5 months ago.
Wow, that's deep in Instagram life.
Yeah, and it says, real friends tell you when you aren't living up to your potential. They don't let you sit and be mediocre and think you're lit. And then I went on and on and on about how it's so important to protect your bubble, your energetic bubble, and that it's really important to have friends that surround you, to have people that surround you that hold you up to a higher standard. And that will help you hold yourself up to a higher standard. But your friendships need to hold you up to that standard too and call you on your shit. And if they're not, and they're letting you be mediocre, or they're letting you stay in kind of a subpar situation, that stinks. You don't want to have those kind of friendships in your life.
Yeah, I was talking to Derek today when I was recording the interview for his podcast, and I found a thread that maybe I hadn't thought of before, which was there when I was a kid, was there when I was a teenager, was there when I was selling drugs, and is there now in my work. And it was, this, to some extent, a lot of what I feel like I do in a lot of my relationships is kind of hold a mirror to people's faces and reflect my perspective, 100% my perspective, not the truth of who they are, but kind of exactly the way that I see what they're doing.
Yeah.
And when it's good, it's great and it's amazing. And when it's not, I can't help but tell them that. I mean, you know that.
Yeah.
I was joking with Derek that sometimes like people want way more tact from me than I can offer, but I feel like that's also a positive for me.
Sure.
A little bit of, if I'm telling you something, I mean it.
Yeah. I think I'm the same way.
I'm really bad at pretending. I feel like you're better.
It just takes more time for me to get there.
Yeah, what you mean with different people in life?
With different people in life. Like it gets to a certain stage in closeness and then I can tell them anything. But in the beginning, I hold it as sacredness. And I think I want to build that relationship and that friendship. And that takes time. And it's kind of the honeymoon phase of a friendship. And then
also to me, I think I appreciate so much when other people can do that for me.
Right.
Because what I was talking about, and you know this, I don't always, especially after the addiction stuff and our stuff and the going to jail and all that, I don't always 100% trust my perspective because I've learned now that there are different ways of looking at what I'm going through. Mm-hmm. And so having people in my life who will call me on shit and will tell me the truth
for sure.
helps me be more certain that I'm actually on the right road instead of either looking at my own all the time or just believing my own bullshit all the time, which can create some serious problems.
Yep. Another really amazing quote that I have been loving lately is, don't be afraid of the solitude that comes with raising your standards. Don't be afraid of the solitude that comes with raising your standards.
Say it again.
Don't be afraid. No, but really, I mean, damn.
What does that mean to you?
To me, it's like quality over quantity.
I practice that.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Sophie just rolled her eyes at me, everybody.
He has a very tight-knit group of friends. He would rather have 0 friends than...
Oh, I mean, I'll take that statement to the bank. I would 100% rather have 2 friends that I can really, really rely on.
I mean,
and
at
trust.
times it's been 0 for you. Like at times you've literally let no one in.
Well, no, if you include Ori and Israel and like Igal, well, I'm saying like, they're not all people that I can see on a daily basis.
Right.
But if you include my Israeli friends, it's been down to 2.
Yeah.
That's definitely been a reality for me. Yeah. And one of the friendships, we were talking about this before, my best friend growing up, well, one of my best friends growing up, Ellie, who ended up moving to the US. I mean, we were uber close, so much so that he came to visit for literally 6 months after he finished the army in Israel and came to live with me for 6 months. And we did everything. It was like the best summer of my life. And then a couple of years later, he ended up moving to LA and lived really close by. And we were super close. He was the best man at our wedding. And then things just started
getting weird.
And it was occupying a lot of time. Like I was thinking about it a lot, and you and I were talking about it a lot, and I would bring it up to other people, and something started falling off. Just, it didn't feel the same.
Yeah, you just start to get an inkling, and then you try and initiate change or a conversation, try and step it up a little bit and expect more from someone. And if they aren't willing to raise to your standards, if they're not willing to raise to your expectations and your needs.
Yeah, I think that's more important. Like standards makes it seem like there's good and bad. To me, it's more like,
what are your needs? You
know what you need in a relationship to make it good. And it's not like, this was the thing, and I don't know if anybody can relate to this, and the specifics matter less, but the guy lived in the marina, so 20, 25 minutes away from where I was living at the time. And yet it got to the point, I mean, he started dating somebody new, and it got to the point where we were seeing him every 3 or 4 months, and every time we would make plans, they would get canceled last minute. And I could just tell something was off. And one day I decided to initiate the conversation, and we had like an hour-long I remember I was standing on Broxton, right by UCLA, right by that sushi place that we used to go to all the time. And we just talked and talked and talked, and I could just tell he wasn't telling me. Something was bothering him, and he wasn't telling me what it was. And I kind of tried to pull it out of him, and in the end I said, look, if we continue this conversation, like if we hang up now and we do this again in a little bit, are things going to change? Or, because I was really bothered by the fact that I couldn't come get to see the guy. And it was always the same excuse, like, I'm working too much. I'm like, bro, you eat dinner, like you're alive right now. I haven't seen you in 4 months. Something's going on beyond you just working. And he just wouldn't tell me what it was. And I could tell it was something personal, but he wasn't willing to go there. And I said, look, I love you. I will never stop loving you. True to this day, by the way. And this is like 8 years ago almost. But I don't think you really want this. So you go do your thing. And, if we're ever ready again, we'll be friends again. And all of our other friends have, since you've been there in Israel, and our friends are like, what do we need to do to bring you guys back together? Because we'll literally, for the last 7 years, we'll be in Israel at the same time and no contact, no communication for the entire time. And speaking to the quotes that you were mentioning, this was my thing. And it's what I was saying before about kind of being a reflection of what I see. You know this, and we've been through this for sure. I will talk about anything, and I will, especially with your help, work through it for as long as we need to. But if the other person on the other side isn't willing to give the same sort of effort as we know in our relationship, then I'd rather just say, okay, cool, then maybe this is done for now, and come back when you're ready or not. And I never definitely expected us to not talk for 7 years. That was definitely not what I expected after that conversation. But also, if that's what's right for him, then that's the right answer. It's just, I don't need more standards than that. What I can't do, and I haven't really been able to do in a very long time in my life, is I can't pretend that I feel a certain way about a relationship when I feel a completely different way. And everybody I know now in my life, from Boris to Darren to all the other people that I have in my life, I know I can be upfront with them. And that is really important to me because I don't want to have to pretend. I don't pretend with you. I don't want to have to pretend anywhere else in my life.
Exactly.
Now, Soph, that was a story from my life, but obviously I know you've actually had a lot of these throughout your time with some of your current best friends. Yeah.
I have a lot of really close people in my life. Like, relationships are my jam. Like, they have been since I was little. I moved around a lot. So from a very young age, the thing that linked me through all of that moving from state to state, from school to school, were the friendships in my life. And the friendships in my life helped ground me and connect me to my highest purpose. And, my dad was kind of all over the place, flew in here and there to visit us. And my mom wasn't really that consistent. So my friendships were my life. My friendships were my family. And they mean and meant everything to me. And they still do. But, with growing pains, with changing, with evolving, with becoming the next best version of who you are, comes shifts and change and transitions in those friendships. And you, just like any relationship, you either grow together or you don't.
I think that's the thing that's important.
You both evolve.
Sometimes you're both evolving, but you evolve differently.
Exactly.
And it means that the space between you just gets too far. It's just too hard to bridge the gap at a certain moment in time.
And I have some best friends that stuck with me through all of it, and through the years, we could have a phone call for 2 hours on a Saturday, both of us be on a walk or both of us doing whatever we're doing in our lives 3,000 miles away, but we found a way to link and connect. And
was that easy also when you were younger? Because obviously, actually,
it's still that way.
Some of your best friends, you're still that way. But I'm saying when you were like 20, was that still a thing you could do?
Yeah. That's all my best friends. When I moved to LA, I had no friends here at all. And all my best friends were living 3,000 miles away. And we'd have great conversations. They were totally in on my life here, and I was in on their life there. And it worked for us. I flew into Maryland to, go back to like Lydia's college with her and for big parties and big hangouts. And I'd fly in for the weekend and she'd come visit me in the spring. And, we just made it work.
That's the thing though. Made it work and put the effort in, right? Like
we really did.
Maybe you were far, but you flew to your friend's college to go and hang out with her and go to parties. Like that's what I'm talking about. Is when somebody stops being willing to put in the effort and do the work, it's dead. Like the relationship is just dead.
Yeah, like I think from Heather to Eva to Lydia, like my closest friends, we saw each other multiple times a year and lived 3,000 miles apart.
Yeah.
So between talking every single week for several hours, from, sending each other postcards when we traveled places, to writing each other love letters on Valentine's Day, like we figured out how to be really good long distance best friends. And we made a point to have that quality time together. And the friends that we didn't get that time together, it did start to fade. The love didn't fade, but the friendship and the closeness and the new memories did. And that made it hard. Yeah, so that was one way of ending a friendship, is just letting it fizzle away and letting your energy just go different ways and your evolution go different ways. There's nothing wrong or good or bad about it.
Like, you're not saying in the ghosting way of like, hey, I'm gonna disappear from your life, but
just
rather just like it's slowly, the energy just goes away from it.
Yeah, you just like aren't gravitating towards each other, and you're missing ways to catch up, and then all of a sudden 6 months go by. And that's okay. And then sometimes that comes back again, and sometimes it doesn't. I think this podcast is more about the friendships that you choose not to reconnect with, and you make a conscious decision
to cut it off. And
because
those are hard.
Because you are a mature adult and you know what you want and need, and that friendship isn't giving you that. It's not about that person even necessarily. It's that friendship is not elevating you. Yeah. Something that used to fill you up is now draining you.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing with the Ellie thing, right? It was like,
he's a great human.
I could have just kept it going that way and just accepted it, but I'm just not willing to accept less than great in my relationships. Even, like you were saying earlier, I have a handful of friends, and some of the friends that I have, I only see still a few times a year. But when that happens, we put in the effort. Like, you can just tell that we're really, from both sides, like Seth, right?
You're still dedicated.
Seth, when he's like in town, he'll say to me, hey, I've got an extra 12 hours in LA. I was going to leave this morning, but I'm leaving tonight. What are you doing this afternoon, this evening? And he knows I'll put the effort forward. And I know that if he's in town and he has a free moment, he'll ask me. And that's the kind of effort, and that's the kind of work that I'm talking about.
Exactly. I think also a great question to ask yourself is this an energy giver or taker? Is this filling me up or taking away from my cup? And that's in anything, really. It's not just friendships. I mean, it's spring now. This will come out like second week of spring. What can you clear out in your life? What no longer serves you in this next phase, in this next iteration? Toxic lovers, family members that are taking you for granted or taking advantage of you, or ones that just aren't filling your cup in the way that you need them to.
For toxic lovers, do you need like a full-on Dyson vacuum, or can you just use like one of the handheld ones?
I'm not sure what you mean by that joke.
Like spring cleaning, toxic lovers, that's not as easy as, I'm kind of done with this.
Are you being in integrity with the people that you're sleeping with? Or are you just being sloppy? Because if you're letting
What do you mean by sloppy?
Are you allowing people in your life to physically enter your body or connect with your body in a way that isn't in your best, highest self and integrity?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big, when you get to the romantic part of it, I think that's almost a separate piece than the friendship only.
I'm not just talking about friendship here. I'm talking about everything in your life, clearing out what no longer serves you. Okay. Evaluate all of it. I'm saying that it doesn't stop at friendships. This podcast specifically is about friendships and relationships, but we have relationships to lots of things in our lives. From your work relationships, is that a toxic environment? Is it making you miserable? Is it no longer filling you up? The first day you might have gotten to work and been like, this is my dream job. Now it's 6 years later and you're not filled up. You feel miserable. Relationships shift and change. That's normal. If you grow with each of these things and you're on the exact same, in the same space, great. But if you're not, don't judge it as a harsh thing. Just reevaluate and see where you can make some shifts and changes.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I was pausing is like when we started out, it was about friends, and then it moved to lovers. And part of the reason, like, to me, the the kind of language and the habits we have around partners, like sexual partners and people that we're with, are like models of our parents. And, we use a lot of what we learned earlier on in life, both from our early dating experiences and from our parents about what relationships look like. I have a lot of different friends that fit into different areas of my life. My partner, like the person I'm with, is a really big chunk, more than, for me at least, more than my friends.
But I'm saying if you're not in a serious relationship that's monogamous, like,
oh, okay.
I'm saying for people who are single, like, this is just a very broad, my point in this was, what can you clear out in your life, relationships in your life that no longer serve you? That's my point. So if it's work, if it's people you're sleeping with and you're single or you're in an open relationship, if it's family, this is applicable. This conversation is applicable to all of it.
Totally. It's just the process is so different. Like if work isn't serving you, you can say to a friend, hey, I don't want to hang out anymore. Saying to your boss, like, I don't want to come in anymore, has a lot of other implications. Is what I'm saying.
And I think, but it is similar in the formula and the way that I would use it. Like,
cool. So let's go through that.
So for me, I'd be like, okay, let's start with this. Is this energy sucking or energy providing? If the answer is energy sucking, if it's taking your energy, if it's taking from your cup, then start to look at that. What about it drains you? Start to look at the positive and negatives of that relationship, whether it be your job, a partner, whatever, friendship. What about it? Like, what are some things that you could work on? What are some things that that person could work on to make it better so that you don't have to end it?
Got it.
Then from there, after you look at the attributes and the things you bring to the relationship and the things that the thing brings to your life and to the relationship, then take a sacred pause. Take a moment to just breathe into all that work you just did, all the pluses and minuses, and take some energetic space from that thing and allow that charge to just chill out a second. And you don't have to let the person know or let the thing know. Just take a little time from it. And then from there, you can make some decisions and have some conversations with your boss, with the guy, with the friend, whatever it is, and then take action.
Okay, so the first part is just paying attention to what it is that bothers you. So like if your work, it could be something about the way the schedule works or something about the way your office, where
Pros
your office is or how it's decorated. Or,
yeah, it's not just a job that makes you miserable. How can you get really specific about the pros and cons? There are still probably things that fill you up. You just getting a paycheck is great. Like just in that way,
Yeah.
Like I think it's really easy for me. My default is more extremes of like, she's horrible, she's great, she's the best, she's the worst. Like that is like my default. And so I have to work really hard
about friends, you mean?
Everything. Once I'm over something, I'm over it. So if I'm like not into a job, I'm just over it and I'm like, I quit. I just don't even want to do it anymore. I'm not going to show. That's
no doubt.
Right? Like I'm like over it. I like my attachment just completely disintegrates. And that's not always healthy because then I'm not really looking at the full spectrum. I'm not looking at the whole picture. So for me personally, making a list of like, here are the things this person's great at. Here are the things I love about this friendship. And here are the things that I kind of wish would shift and the things that are taking my energy away.
Yeah.
So looking at the full picture and writing it down and making it tangible and really looking at that, looking at the pros and cons, looking at the goods and the bads, looking at the things that fill you up and take away from you, and then going from there. And then having a real adult conversation after you've done that work so you can see the full picture. And sometimes that, most of the time it's going to be a really hard conversation. And you're the one that's bringing it to the table. The other person may not have even known there was an issue.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's always hard when you have these conversations because it's not like you're going to change the other person.
No.
And hopefully you don't need to be in the kind of relationship where you all of a sudden have to try to change your friend. That's not a good place to be.
Yeah.
So a lot of times this is more about, hey, here are some things that I've been noticing about our relationship. Almost kind of hoping that they've been noticing something similar or that the same kind of things have been bothering them, but they just never said anything and you can kind of reset. Instead of, I would like for you to be more
Yeah.
More approachable, or I'd like for you to come over more. It's like when you start talking about things in that way, I feel like a lot of times, and this is kind of what happened with Ellie, it's already a little bit of a losing battle right from the beginning, because there's a reason why the person is doing that.
Right.
And what you're doing is you're bringing it to the forefront.
Yeah, I think bringing it to the forefront sometimes can have a positive response. Like, I think you could be like, I feel like you haven't been around as much and I miss you. And that person might literally just be like, oh my God, I've been so caught up in this project. It has nothing to do with you. I'm going to make sure, let's set a date for Thursday night and have some time, just me and you. Like, it could be that easy to change and shift.
That hasn't happened in my experience. In my experience, the kind of relationships where it's that easy, we've still had touch. Like we've talked throughout, and we've texted, or, hey, can you hang out, this, whatever. And it just doesn't work out, but we know we're still, again, it's about doing the work, right? It's like the other person texts me every once in a while to find out if I can hang out, and whether I can or can't is not really the point. The point is that there's the care for doing it.
Yeah.
Again, I haven't had a lot of experience on this. I've had like literally one relationship breakup, really, in the friendship arena. And so I don't know that the experience is that telling of what everybody else goes through, but it was like, when I have to point to another person that they've cut off contact, it's a little bit of that needy, hey, pay more attention to me, when it's pretty obvious that the other person is, something has shifted for them.
Sure. Yeah, I think this is just a good practice in awareness and evaluating where you're at. And I think it's important to constantly reevaluate the relationships in your life, not take them for granted, and not allow them to take you for granted. Because it's easy to just go into default and like go into autopilot.
Yeah.
And be a little lazy. And every relationship is unique and different, and you get to make up your own rules in these relationships. And that's really cool. And it also can make it really complicated.
And I think what's really cool about that process is, regardless of how the conversation goes and what happens with the friendship, you came in, said what you needed to say. You know that you were completely transparent and open in that relationship. And so that person, if in that moment it's not a good fit and the relationship is going to dissipate, and like you said before, it's kind of, you're just not going to be putting the energy that you had been putting into it anymore. If there's openness, again, if there's space in each other's life, then you can send a text, you can send a message to say, hey, what are you up to? What's going on? I'm ready to reconnect.
I recently had a really hard breakup 6 months ago. Someone who was really, really close to me. We had been friends, like inseparable friends, for 5 years. And
was it that long that you guys were friends?
Yeah,
5 years?
Yeah.
Time flies. It's so crazy.
5 years. And it's crazy because I don't really mess around. Like, once you're in my life, you're in it. And so she was in all parts of my life, lots of different areas. And I mean, she was in my family. We were doing business things together. Like, we crossed all the lines. I'm not good at boundaries at all. And I like that. Yeah,
but I don't think, like, you don't want, when you meet somebody that you're really close to, you don't want to say, hey, I need to give this relationship 3 years of development before I'll introduce you to other parts of my life, because I want to save my trust.
But I think some people do like take it really slow and easy, and I just don't. I jump in full on. And with this friendship, she kept going back to this ex-boyfriend, ex-lover, and throughout the 5 years, it was a back and forth situation. And
I don't even think she kept going. Like, if they tell the story, they've been together for the whole 5, 6, 7 years.
No, I don't think so.
On and off.
Yeah, they've been together on and off. They kept breaking up and getting back together.
Yeah.
They would date other people and then get back together. So I just feel like once I had baby Noah, my patience for bullshit honestly just disintegrated. Like, I had no patience for bullshit. And I think if I had less children and less on my plate, I might even like be more easygoing about some of these things. Like, whatever, let her do her thing. But because I have so much at stake and the children, and like, as that adds up, I have less space in my life. I want there to be joy and love. I need it to be pretty easy and consistent and grown up. I can't have a bunch of bullshit. So this particular friendship, there was some lying. Every time he comes into her life, there was manipulation and lying and not whole truths being told. And I just don't like the person. I don't like her guy at all. So it made it uncomfortable. So now we can't go on double dates because I don't like the person and I don't want to be around him. I can't really give good advice when she comes to me because I don't like him.
You secretly want them to break up anyway.
Yeah. And I tried my best throughout. And I actually gave like an enormous amount of effort to being a very consistent, good, supportive friend, even though I really didn't want them together. I pushed that aside.
This is my thing about always when it's a little bit of an aside, but like, this is why it sucks to try to give advice to friends because nobody wants advice. They either want you to reinforce what they already want to do anyway.
And that's what I was doing. I was like supporting her, finding ways around it. We gave them our therapist. We were there for them. We met up with them. We did as much as we could to support what she wanted.
And as long as you give them the same line, they're all in.
They're fine.
And then when you turn around, you're like, you can't, I'm not supporting this shit.
Yeah.
They go, you're idiot. You're crazy. I can't have you as a friend anymore.
I had baby Noah, and 3 months later, she started dating this guy again. After we all were pretty on the same page, clear that it was done. And I went to her, we met up, I carved out 2 hours. You were taking all 3 kids. We met up, we're eating acai bowls in the sunshine. And I said, look, I know that you're talking to him again. And I want to be really clear that if he's in your life, I can't be in your life. And this is the first time I've ever said that.
Yeah. First time you ever said what she didn't want to hear.
First time I said what she didn't want to hear. And I was one of the last people that actually supports them. She's had lots of relationships end because of this same thing, patterning. And I look up, and then I look up, she's grabbing her keys and her cell phone and her acai bowl and looks me dead in the eyes and says, thanks for being honest with me. And gets up and walks away.
Yeah.
And that was it. It
Yep.
was a 6-minute conversation. After the small talk ended, I got right to the point, and she didn't like what I was saying. There was no conversation. To her, she felt like I gave her an ultimatum.
You kind of did.
And I kind of did, but I was still open to conversation. We could have still had a conversation about it.
Yeah, but given what we were talking about before, you had kind of created the list, right? That process you were going through.
Yeah.
There was, for you, it was the thing about this was for you, there was a very strong single boundary almost.
Yeah.
And that boundary was being crossed
It was
your
crossed,
standpoint.
and it like she pushed the boundary over and over again. She was like physically hurt by this person. She was mentally hurt by this person. She was emotionally drained and hurt by this person. And I was there to pick up the pieces every single time.
And
This was it. I couldn't do it again.
Right. And the thing is that because there are other people listening right now and they're going through their own examples of this. This is my thing. And I think it's what you were saying by there was no dialogue. If you're going to address issues in a relationship, both people have to be willing to sit there and just talk and talk and talk and talk and figure out a way to resolve the thing.
I could have sat there for 4 hours and talked to her. I would have.
And she got up and
we could have talked in circles and maybe gotten somewhere and maybe not, but I would have given it my all, and I would have talked till I was blue in the face.
My point is that she didn't want to work on it.
She didn't want to work on it.
Because the relationship was more important than your relationship. And I think to me, that's it's not comfortable, right? Somebody on one of my Instagram lives the other day was talking about a breakup, and I was saying breakups are gifts.
Yeah.
Think about it. Breakups are gifts.
Yeah.
Because whether you're the person who decided you no longer want to be in this relationship and now you're freeing yourself, or you're not that person and the other person is giving you the gift of freeing you from being trapped in a relationship where somebody doesn't love you.
Yeah.
It's a gift either way.
Exactly.
Like, you don't want to be with somebody who doesn't want to be with you.
Yep.
I mean, if you really think about it, you just don't. And so even in this friendship, any compromise you guys would have landed on was not going to include them breaking up.
Yep.
Because it was pretty clear from her getting up that was more important.
Yeah.
And by the way,
she also just didn't like the ultimatum. She didn't like that I was switching my tune.
Sure. But
it offended her on some level, I'm sure.
Whatever the reason is, like, it was almost like you have to pick a side.
Yeah.
And
I think that for the most part, I was on her side. the majority of the 5 years. And I was there, I was supporting her, I was loving her, I was holding her.
And you went to the other side.
And then I turned to the other side. I couldn't anymore. It took me past my limit. And you know, you're in a similar vortex with someone. You have an understanding. You're like, we love each other in this way. We show up for each other in this way. In friendship, like this is our rule book. This is the way that we're writing our beautiful book of friendship. And we're co-authors. And we have an understanding. But if one person starts to veer and starts scribbling in another page of another book, it just changes everything. All of a sudden, the bubble is burst. And I stepped out and I was scribbling outside of the lines because she offended me in a way and offended herself. Like she made a decision by going back to him that was outside of our rule book.
Yeah. And I think, again, this is why I wanted to talk about specifics is, you know, I've had people struggle with their sister, with their ex-best friend. I mean, these kind of stories happen all the time.
Yeah.
And people feel really badly because part of the whole deal, and you guys knew each other for 5 years, you know, Ellie and I knew each other for, I don't even know, 15, 18 years, some longer, 20 years. And so part of this is you're like, damn it, I have so much invested in this relationship.
Yeah.
I want to keep it going.
Yeah.
But I think then sometimes we end up compromising who we are because of all the extra weight. And I'm sorry.
There is a lot of weight.
This might not be popular, but I don't think it's worth it.
No, it's not.
I don't think you want to be tethered to somebody who no longer represents your best self because you have so much history. You know, and by the way, a lot of people I think will disagree with me on this. It's like, well, you've known each other for that long. And I'm not talking about family. That's why I didn't want you to give a family example, because it's just different with family.
Yeah.
It's just different, right? The blood ties, they've been with you the entire lifetime you've been around. There's a difference. But with friends, I want my friends to bring out the best of me. I've told you this before. I've said it on here before. If I'm in a place where I need to talk shit about my friend, it's time to have a fucking conversation with them.
Yeah.
Or end the friendship. Like one or two. It should never be, I don't think there's a third option. Like I either need to sit my friend down and say, fuck, you know what? I've noticed there's some stuff I really don't like that's happening. We need to talk about it ourselves because I don't want to talk to other people about you. And if I can't do that, I need to end the relationship because we either need to resolve it or I don't want to be the kind of person who talks shit about other people.
Or even just thinks bad feelings and thoughts.
Yes, exactly. Or even just thinks badly of the people in my life. And so
that's where I am now, is just like in the friendships in my life. If I start to think something where I'm like, ugh, she's annoying me because of this thing. Or like she told me she would do this, but she keeps not. And she keeps, not showing up in the way I need her to. Like the minute I start thinking about her in a negative way, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to chat with her and be like, hey, and like call her on it, Totally. And I want the same. 100%. I want the same. I want you, if we're close, I want you to call me on my bullshit too. And we're not perfect and we're going to make mistakes along the way. This doesn't mean that the friendship has to end.
Yeah.
But talk about the things that really need to be talked about. The things that irk you, the things that, they can be better and do better.
And I'm a firm believer, like, you mentioned Rochelle before we started talking, like there are relationships that you have gone through a lot with. But I think the reason they've held on is you now talk about shit as soon as it comes up. Like 3 hours ago, you guys had a thing and then you just get on the phone and you solve it and you're on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And to me, those are the best
relationships.
relationships.
A lot of respect. There's a lot of respect in these friendships. My girl friendships in my life, like, are really powerful and I really honor them. And for any of you that are listening, I know a lot of you guys listen. Mia, Lydia, like so many of you guys listen. And I mean, I wouldn't be the woman that I am today without these girls and without these friendships and the evolution of them. And we're sisters. Like you say, the blood is important, but like, honestly, I am so much closer to these chosen sisters in my life than my own family. I love my family. But like, I don't have the type of relationship with them that I do with these women who have been there since I was 12 years old.
What I'm saying though, is sometimes you'll end up holding to relationships and families that are not at the same level of quality you would expect from your friends because it's family.
Right.
Yeah, it's powerful. I only really have 2 or 3 of those friends left. And it makes me sad. Like, it makes me really sad that I lost Ellie, but also if I had to let it go, I had to let it go. Like, I'm not going to stay in a
energetically
draining
I think
relationship.
it's also healthy to just like a lot of my relationships in my life, a lot of my friendships, the ones from like middle school, high school, college, a lot of them had to take a break to then allow us to grow in our own ways.
And find yourself.
And then find yourself and then find each other again. And a lot of the relationships in my life are so healthy now because we allowed that time and space. And honestly, there wasn't even like a conflict or a thing. We just needed to go figure out who we were.
Well, if you think about it, you named some of the friends, like
Mia.
You and Malia.
Yeah.
You were different people in high school and you were cheerleaders.
Hell yeah.
And when you're still friends on an ongoing basis, you treat the other person like they were in high school.
Exactly.
But now you're 22 years old. You're not in high school anymore and they need a break.
Malia's a great example actually because so Mia and I were friends when we were in middle school and then high school, and we were on the cheerleading squad together and we loved each other hard. We were at each other's houses all the time and super connected, and that continued to evolve. And then in college, we just started to go our separate ways. We started hanging out with different groups of people. I moved to LA. We just started gravitating away from each other, and we allowed that. And we had a breakup. I think there was a thing. We like created a thing. The universe created a thing. And thank you for that thing.
Just like a fight or something that would piss each other off.
A disagreement, whatever. Something very childish and dumb. And it broke us up. And we separated for a while. And when we got back together, we were so much better for it. And now we're both moms. We see eye to eye on just about everything. I mean, we had very different growing up processes in different worlds of college and even our religion, like everything is pretty different, but we have an understanding and a respect now as moms, as grown adults, unlike anything else. And because we've been friends since we were 12, we know sides to each other. Like she knows me as a little girl and I know her. And it's so beautiful. And we're so grateful and honored to be on this road together, and we can tell each other anything, and there's nothing like that. And I really do honor these friendships in my life. And you know, if you have these types of friendships in your life, let them know how much you love them. I'm going to make a point in the next few weeks to handwrite my best friend's letters and send them in the mail because I think about them all the time. I dream of them. I dream of taking all our families with our children on vacations together. Like I would love that one day to be able to do that.
It's fun when you go on the East Coast and we see them.
I mean, I wish it was all of them, but it's not. And you know, the point is just make sure they know how much you love them.
Yeah.
And the friendships in your life that need some tinkering, take the time to do the tinkering. Believe in yourself. Take the risk. Don't remain safe. Take the risk. Say, hey, I'd love to like take you to tea on Wednesday. I'd love to take you, whatever. Do it sober. Don't have drinks. I'd love to take you to dinner.
That's a great point, by the way, right? Don't get wasted, and then it's like easier to say some of the shit that you want to say, but
it
now you're
doesn't really
drunk.
come out right, and then it like gets kind of sloppy. Straight-headed. Take them to dinner. Go to the spa. Something, and have the hard conversations now before it gets weighted with time and space. And just you owe
resentment and all that.
Yeah, resentment. Just you owe it to the friendship and you owe it to yourself to get the relationship out of it that you want and need and deserve, and they do too. Yeah,
and you know, in a way, this is essentially the concept of bringing that radical transparency piece that we talk about in your coupleship to your other relationships, which reminds me, on our 21-day challenge that. I think when this comes out, there's still like 3 days or something to enroll in. We're making these bands, these kind of rubber bands, those old like Live Strong ones.
Yeah.
But they're going to say ignited, and then radical transparency is fire, and which is a really fun new saying that I kind of feel like we're going to start putting on stuff. So we're making mugs with it. But if people enroll in the challenge, they get one of those, and then there's like an upgrade thing, and they can get a mug that says the same thing on it.
Great. Yeah. And that concept of radical transparency that Adi and I always push in our relationship that helps us heal from the like most traumatic, crazy things. The same thing can be applied in your friendships and your relationships in your life. And this type of radical transparency is addicting. Like it's just feels so good to just tell your truth, show up exactly as you are, and then it gives permission to the other person to do the same.
100%. And this actually links up. We didn't say this at the beginning, so I want to read the review of the week. And it was from Mimi Crawford, who said, amazing podcast, 5 stars. This podcast is literally life-changing. I'm so grateful to have found it. It gives you such a wonderful perspective on life and the relationships you have in any form. It's super relatable too. Knowing that there's other people out there that have gone through such similar situations as I have is so relieving and freeing. It's like a weight has been lifted knowing I'm not alone. Thank you both so much.
Radical transparency.
And I'm wondering, so yes, radical transparency. One of these days we'll tell the story about you. Like this is a lot of transparency. Just so you guys know, this is a lot of transparency for us. And the vulnerability is difficult because we have to be talking about things that are not always the easiest thing to talk about, as an example. But I hope that even today, some of you listening related, like Mimi said, to some life experiences that you've had yourself. And if you have, I'd love it if you would share it with us. We really, really love seeing either DMs from you or screen grabs when you share some of the lessons that you felt are useful. Because Sophie's system and her example of radical transparency in her relationships has absolutely manifested in a lot of strong relationships that have been around for a long time, that took work. But now, like we said, when we go on the East Coast and we go visit some of Sophie's lifelong friends, it's really beautiful to see the people. Kind of like when we go to Israel. I have the same thing in Israel. Yeah. We have a few friends in Israel that I have the same thing with, people I've known for 15, 20 years or more. 30, god damn.
There's nothing like it.
30 some years. It's crazy. I've known Ori for 36 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful. It takes the work sometimes, and you got to show up and practice it. And, we really urge all of you to bring this into all of your relationships. The payoff is amazing.
It's the best.
Yeah. Any closing remarks?
We're a living example of it.
Yeah. Thank you all for tuning in. Hope this was good and useful and enjoyable to you. I hope to see you on the 21-day challenge, and we will see you next week.
Love you all.
Love you.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Ignited podcast. We were so happy to have you along for this ride. Please go and subscribe to this. Leave us a review. We love hearing from you. And if you want more, don't forget to go to ignited.com, where all the podcast episodes are available with show notes and so many of the little details and links from each one of these interviews. And you can look at all the future events that we have going on, all the things that make Ignited so special, even beyond this recording. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.